Well, a very warm welcome to the Institute of Advanced Study. We're very delighted to have you here, and I'd like to start by asking you how you come to be in Durham University and working with Ivana Petrovich. How did you find out about her research?
I had worked with Robin Lane Fox and Alexander for a long time. He was at Oxford, and we made the movie. When it came out, there was quite a bit of discussion about it, and a German publisher put together a series of essays from scholars, classical scholars. Ivana was one of them, and her article on the underworld, the mythical side of Alexander, the quest for finding an identification with the many heroes of Greek mythology, and the redundancy of that and how that repeats through the generations was her theme, as was one of my themes in the movie, and I really identified with her article. So I reached out to her, and eventually through letter correspondence we met in London. That was it. We met in London, and I ended up. She invited me up here, and about a year later, year and a half, I'm here. So she's a very bright young woman, and she suckered me in here, and this is a classics university, I gather, among other things.
Well, it has strengths right across the whole disciplinary spectrum, but classics is certainly one of its strongest departments. It's very world-leading in that respect. So implicit in what you're saying, and water, yes,
philosophy.
Yeah, no, we do just about everything here in Durham. Now, what that implies is that you're interested in real depth in your films, getting under the surface of things.
Yeah.
And this is very evident in your whole body of work, actually, that you make good use of historians, classicists,
That's right.
political scientists, whoever, and that you take the notion of evidence and research very seriously. Yes. And it strikes me this is a very powerful mix to have really sound academic research and filmmaking skills. What do you feel that brings out in the work?
Well, it's a good question because, well, first of all, the research, there's obviously, as in my other films I've tried to point out, there's orthodox research, which goes by the book, accepts some of the cliches that have been written, and accepts sometimes the untruth as truth. But I'm always exploring with, my mind tells me where to go in terms of going further sometimes on the orthodox history, and I reach places that are not normally thought of by classical historians. So there's definitely a problem here because classical history, there's different schools of thought about it. And I'm willing to argue and debate it, but I need to know the facts, and I have to go to whatever the orthodox history is. I certainly read it first, as I did the Warren Commission in the JFK murder. But as we know from history, there are lots of conspiracies and a lot of dirty deeds that go unpunished as well as unrecorded and unknown. And I think we have to be aware of that if we're smart. And I think Durham catches that spirit of the underground, the Harry Potter, the unorthodox. There's something weird here.
Well, there's a depth of scholarship here. That's the point. And I think the difference between what you're saying is that getting away from the orthodoxy and working with people who think very independently and rigorously about the topic seems key.
But you get really stuck. I mean, I've done too much research on many films. I know that problem where you go way past, because a film is this 2-hour vehicle and it's generally simpler. And my films have sometimes gotten so complex that I had to cut 30, 40 minutes, and I've lost a lot of what I originally intended. So I'm very careful not to over-research it, but at the same time, you got to know the facts, and as much as they're known. Now, sometimes they're not known, as in the Kennedy killing, or as in many things that have happened in my films. So you have to use your imagination. At a certain point, you can only do so much research. Then you've got to sort of like stop, forget it all, and then go ahead and do what you have to do. And that's when it happens. But you've got, you're based in, you have a basis of it.
Yeah. You know, that's a problem with which every single doctoral student on the planet would sympathize immediately.
Yeah. There's nothing more boring than to make a movie that's boring. You know, that's really the worst thing you could do to a historical figure. That's why I did 4 versions of Alexander, because I was haunted by the fact that I just hadn't achieved what I wanted to achieve until I reached the 3rd version, which is 5 years later. 10 years later, I released a 4th version just to make it even better. So, you know what I'm saying? You have to dig And sometimes you have to be a scholar with a movie, but you can't do it in front of the public. You have to do it and then come to the public with an exciting vehicle that is entertaining and all those things and simplifies, but at the same time keeps the spirit of the history, so in some ways it clarifies, it gives you the spiritual moment in history, the entry into what really Alexander meant, or what this was about, or what that was about. It gives you the meaning of it. You don't have to get all the details, because people, frankly, do get bored with details.
So you have, in effect, a very powerful combination of art and scholarship, which is precisely...
You can call it dramatist, yes. A dramatist does. The Greek dramatists came before the Greek historians, as far as I know. And they were the Greek, whether it was Homer or whether it was Aeschylus and Sophocles, they were there 50 years before the first Greek history writers show up.
Okay. That's great. Well, look, thank you so much for visiting, and we hope very much that you enjoy your time in London.
No problem. And thank you for having me, and great lunch. Thanks, honey.